Hello, and welcome back to the Blue Shadow Podcast. I'm Joey,
I am Dan.
and today we're going to take a look at The Bad Batch Season 3, Episode 8, and then do a fun segment that I am not aware of what is happening. Dan said, I got it.
Yes, if you may have noticed or may not have noticed, Joey's a lot more creative than I am.
Oh.
So I wanted to hit him with a little curveball, or I don't know if it'll be a curveball. Maybe I'll tip my pitch. I don't know. But yeah, that's going to be what we're going to end with today, and hopefully it'll be pretty fun.
I'm very excited, but I want to start out by doing our usual, what are you watching, playing, and reading over the past week?
I guess I'll start. We are continuing our West Wing watch, currently in Season 2, so that's been pretty good, and March Madness started this weekend, so I went to a couple of the games. We're located in a host city for the first round, so we went to a couple games, and then I just watched a lot this weekend. How about you?
I have, as I've been talking about, and as I will probably continue talking about for a few more weeks, I am playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I've made some progress. I'm really enjoying it, really loving it. So the original game was like a early PlayStation game that you blocking and it's turn-based combat. The first one was like a huge evolution on that, and this turned like a pretty linear game into like a full-on open world game, which I love. So I'm just really enjoying exploring. I went back and did all the side stuff instead of progressing the story this past week, which was pretty fun. And then for watching, I'm still watching X-Men the Animated Series. Haven't started X-Men 97 yet, even though no, it's out. But we want to finish that first. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been up to this week.
No reading for either of us?
No. And we're going to talk about...
Look at us.
Yeah. We'll touch on reading at some point. But...
guess we'll jump right into it. This week was episode 8 of The Bad Batch. It was a 1-episode week, and it was titled Bad Territory. So, Joey, what do we think Bad Territory was referring to?
I think much like any Star Wars episode, it has two meanings. The first is that they literally went to a bad territory. They went to the swamp, and it was just not a very hospitable environment. But I also think it could mean that as they're moving closer to figuring out what M count is, they're moving into some conceptual bad territory.
I agree. And I also think bad territory, at least what I thought, could be referring to getting into bed with the bounty hunters, which at the end of the day, the Bad Batch at this point in time are mercenaries by definition. However, they still have some set of morals, and the bounty hunters don't. So getting into bed with them could open them up to some things down the road potentially.
And you can tell they're apprehensive about it. So they even know they're in quote bad territory, but they're kind of doing what they have to figure out what the heck's going on. So with that, this episode starts on Pabu, which is always exciting. If there's a planet in Star Wars I'd want to visit, this answer changes all the time, but I think Pabu might be the answer for me. Would you say?
Yeah, I think the Caribbean, though, would be a good substitute. I hear it's pretty close.
I have been to Jamaica, and I love it and talk about it way more frequently than I should. It's been over a year, and I still feeling to go back.
Still feeling hot about it.
Yes. Jan almost everywhere, tan almost everywhere. Anyway, we're on Pabu, and Omega is talking to the Bad Batch and says that she wants to go help Echo and Rex, but Hunter says he wants to, they need to lay low and figure out what's going on with M Count and why the Empire wants her before they do that. And as this is going on, they get a transmission from Fee. I was very excited to see Fee come back from last season.
Yes, Fee is my second favorite pirate. I really love Hondo.
I do love Hondo.
He's probably one of my favorite side characters. Just as an aside, one of my favorite side characters in Star Wars. And
he the way that they've kind of grown him is exciting, and I love where they leave him in Rebels. But I would love to see in this season just a full pirate Hondo.
I agree.
It would be so fun.
So yes, Fee, our favorite pirate, has a transmission for the Bad Batch asking around about M Count.
And as this is kind of happening, Crosshair looks to Omega and says, "Who's that?"
Yeah.
This is the first of 3 or 4 times that he does this, and I think it's telling that I think you're now seeing he's starting to kind of have FOMO, he's starting to
And I think
really feel how long he was absent.
Yes, and I think we're going to come back to this recurring throughout.
Mm-hmm.
So
we'll just leave that be for now.
Save that for the end because again, I want to talk about that as well.
Yeah, but so Fee, we'll just say it now. We'll save that for the last time it happens.
Yeah,
which would be with when they're trying to meditate. But we'll get there when we get there. But so they're asking about M count. Fee says she doesn't really know, but she knows that the Empire's been putting out bounties for like M count targets. She doesn't know what it is, but she suggests talking to a bounty hunter. And during this conversation, this is our only real opportunity in this episode.
Before we do that, can I say one little aside?
Uh-huh.
It's interesting to see how early on the Empire is utilizing bounty hunters.
Yeah, I know. You're right. Because this is like what, just
very
soon after.
Right, and I mean it sets up what we see later in just Star Wars. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and it is, and there's such a strong establishment of the bounty hunter, like I don't want to say network, but like the population of bounty hunters and how they operate. Yeah, like all of that from the Clone Wars and all the way up to the Mandalorian.
And it sounds like they're tiered because Fee says something about all the tier 1 or class 1.
Yes.
So it sounds like there's definitely a hierarchy, and there are people who are better than others, which we see in the movies, we see in The Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. So that was really fun. Just a nice little callback for that.
It was. But Fee does bring up how she says tech was the brains. And this is really our only opportunity to conduct our weekly segment, Tech Watch.
Tech Watch.
What do you think of Tech Watch this week, Dan?
As
your opinion doesn't change very
I will
often.
be very tame. There's really nothing. I can't say anything this week one way or the other. I guess my elevator pitch is he's still dead, but can't really give any reasons this week other than...
You watched him fall from a train?
Yeah, and he's not force sensitive.
That doesn't mean anything, Mace Windu. Anyway.
We're not getting into that. Mace Windu is dead.
Mace Windu is dead. But... Shot myself in the foot there, didn't I? Somehow Tech was returned. That's what I need. But for this week, for me, it'll be fun. For me, my brain says there's nothing new this week to speculate on, but my heart says they keep bringing him up. They don't want us to forget about him. And I don't know if that's just because they want us to feel bad.
He's their brother. Why would they forget about him? I mean, they spend...
Not them. Not us. They don't want us to forget about him.
Fair enough.
All right. We won't waste too much more time on this week.
Thanks for listening to Tech Watch.
Tech Watch. We really should get an audio little cue for that. Anyway.
Get Siri to record it.
It would be kind of funny. But we have now this stage is set for wanting to find a bounty hunter to figure out what the heck M count is. And Omega suggests, which really excited me, that they should go find Fennec Shand. You remember Fennec Shand was in the first season where she initially was going to capture Omega and bring her back to the Kaminoans. But then that was called off. And she kind of had this dynamic in the first season where I think she grew to really like Omega.
I agree. I think as we see Fennec move forward, just jumping ahead to the Mandalorian and what we saw in the Bad Batch and the Book of Boba Fett, she really does. She is pretty ruthless. However, it was nice watching her be able to actually grow attached towards Omega, and it just shows that at the end of the day, Omega is a kid and who really just doesn't have a place in all of this. Just is kind of there.
And I think and we'll talk about our overall thoughts on Fennec, but I think it draws into the Book of Boba Fett and where we end up with Fennec ultimately having like a good heart, and you can see that in what happens with Omega and kind of a little bit in what happens in this episode too, but we'll talk about that. But overall, what do you think about Fennec as a character?
I really like her. I think, as I was kind of alluding to, she's pretty complex. As most of the Star Wars characters are. There's very few who are just what they are on the surface. But I think they're showing that Fennec, at the end of the day, is a bounty hunter, and we'll see that. I mean, yes, that's your job, but the way she approaches it,
her mentality,
is very much so. I have a job to do. I do the job. I get the money. I do another job, which almost is like the Bad Batch post Fall of the Republic. We need money. We do this job. We get the money.
Essentially, anything that had to do with Sid.
Right. So I think there are parallels between. And I think that's important. I think they're showing us that on purpose, that there are parallels between the Bad Batch and Fennec.
Where like the Bad Batch skews more morally good. Fennec skews more morally
I disagree.
ambiguous.
I don't even think it's ambiguous. I mean, not to jump ahead, she says a line. Good guys have money, the bad guys have money. The money's the same.
It's true. Fennec's looking out for Fennec, I guess.
You can argue that she's the most moral and ethical person because she's not. Well, she's not choosing. She's not judging. She's just doing what she's doing.
You could also make the argument that there's not.
We're not going
to do into the ethics right now, but I glanced over to my right and I'm looking at my Book of Boba Fett, like Boba Fett's throne room palace Lego set, and it reminds me of just how much I love that character from The Mandalorian. Book of Boba Fett. Book of Boba Fett I thought was such an interesting show and really fun, and I love where it leaves her, and I am excited to continue seeing her in that portion of the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say?
Oh yeah,
and I'm sure we will, whether it's Mandalorian movie or
whatever.
I would hope for a Book of Boba Fett season 2. I really enjoyed that show.
I really did. I don't think we will.
I know.
Unfortunately, I think this might lose brownie points with people. I don't like what they did with the Mandalorian in Book of Boba Fett. I thought he could have stayed out of it.
I liked it. It's some of the best Star Wars has ever done.
It really was. It was. But instead of getting Book of Boba Fett season 1, we got Mandalorian season 2.5 or.
I feel like it almost was a marketing issue. Like they should have called it like the Mandalorians or something. Like changed it so that it was like.
That's what I think I think season 4 of The Mandalorian, if we ever get one, will be The Mandalorians.
And then that argument could also be made for season 3 as well. But
I mean the actual title.
Yeah, no, I know. Like it could, like you could have argued that it could be called The Mandalorians, and I mean Bo-Katan kind of hijacked The Mandalorian season 3.
Well, not to go too off topic, Bo-Katan might be the Mandalorian.
It's possible. And they kind of in interviews said stuff like that. We are fully divulging. Let's steer back on track. And speaking of Fennec, Crosshair once again says, "Who's that?"
Yeah, just another. It just shows how long Crosshair was out.
Yeah, and like really just how much he missed. But anyway, Hunter and Wrecker say, "All right, we're gonna find Fennec," but Hunter insists on leaving Omega behind.
Yes.
My question for you, Dan, and what I want to talk about is this a regression? Kind of like we saw like last week where Hunter was like, no, or a few weeks ago, Hunter was like, no, you're not coming, Omega. And then she ends up coming. Or is this him being appropriately cautious?
I think this is being appropriately cautious, so much so that there were no other objections.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. And none of the other members of the Bad Batch say like...
And I think they all understand the severity of what's happening. And while Pabu is still hidden, there's no reason to bring Omega out.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when there's Class 1 bounty hunters after them who are... I mean, as we've seen, they're the top tier. They are. Cad Bane was one. Or at least still is
and
one.
We've seen him in the trailer for this season.
Yeah. So, I think it's very smart to leave Omega behind. Again, even Omega, while she's a child, she is smart beyond her years. Even she was like, yeah, you got me.
Yeah, and I think it definitely was a good decision for Hunter. And I think we kind of talked about last week, like, Hunter's kind of taken a little bit of a backseat, and it's almost been projected as if he was, like, a little jealous of Crosshair, kind of. And I think this was nice to, like, kind of assert that Hunter is still the leader, still has a good head on his shoulders, and he's not making this decision out of fear, but out of, like, real caution.
Right. And going into Crosshair, as they were leaving, Hunter tells Omega, you should try and convince him to get his hand looked at. Which just shows Hunter is one step closer to accepting Crosshair back into the group.
And I really think that's showing that Hunter understands Crosshair. Hunter knows that if he says it to Crosshair, he's not going to listen.
Right.
And he knows that Omega and Crosshair are forming this connection, and he wants to use that to help him.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was great. But so that brings us to a point where we follow two storylines for this episode. From here on, we're going to start by focusing just on the Fennec, Hunter, and Wrecker storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to go into the Crosshair and Omega stuff, because there's less, but it's almost like it was like juicier.
Yeah, equally as, if not more important.
Mm-hmm. A lot less screen time, but this is the kind of, the Crosshair and Omega stuff is kind of the stuff that like helped to push a lot of the concepts for the season forward. But so they ultimately get on this go to this like seedy looking space station. We're from Pittsburgh, and I said to my wife, "This is like Carson Street." And didn't I remind you when they were like getting there? There's like people like fighting on the street.
Yeah.
We don't need to elaborate further, but
If you know, you know, I guess.
yes, and they travel on the Marauder, which I thought was exciting because we haven't seen much of the Marauder this season. They've been flying in like Echo ship. I'm not familiar with the name of that one, but it was nice to see the Marauder again.
Mm-hmm.
So they get there, and Hunter's sister Wrecker like, let's try and not tell her. Only tell her what she needs to know, basically.
Right.
And I thought, based on her feelings on Omega, they clearly made a little connection. I wonder if that was a good idea, or if it was, or if Fennec may have been more cooperative if she knew Omega was in danger. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's tough because I think Fennec really did, like you said before, grow to. I don't know. I don't know if appreciate's the right word, but really did grow to like Omega.
I think she did. Yeah, she definitely liked Omega.
So I don't know if that would have changed her motivations. I don't think it would have.
I think she would have still used them for this bounty. She probably may have been a little nicer though. But you also run the risk of her turning them into the Empire. So I completely agree with Hunter's caution. Right. They find Fennec.
Before we go forward,
go ahead.
When they came up to the table, Fennec was having a discussion with a Rhodian. Do we think it was Greedo?
My first instinct was Greedo.
Mine too.
And then I looked at him again, and I feel like if it was Greedo, they would tell us. Do you think?
I don't know.
They've not done much to sell Greedo's competence.
No.
And that Rhodian did not seem competent. I also, speaking of this bar, I love this bar. I thought it was so cool looking and like. Yeah. This is what if they build another bar in Galaxy's Edge. I haven't been yet. I'm planning on going this summer, which is exciting. But I want to go to this bar.
Yeah.
Though, based on what I just described, I could go down the street and go to something pretty darn similar.
For better or for worse.
Very true. So they get there. Fennec recognizes them. Ultimately, this Rhodian ends up going away. Fennec starts talking to the Bad Batch, and they have this whole witty banter between the two of them where they say they need information, and she's like, "You tell me what, and I'll set the price." Basically, she says she hasn't accepted any M-count bounties, but she knows people that have. Right. And if she's more expensive than they can pay, so if they help her with a bounty, she'll get them the information they want.
Right.
Which was a very Fennec interaction, and I really enjoyed it.
It was, but I thought it was interesting, too. I feel like this... I'm going to throw this word out, and I want you to see if you agree with it. It shows almost the naivety of the Bad Batch of just the situation. Because Fennec says, you're going to work with me on this bounty, and then you'll get the information. Then Wrecker says, working with you, and she goes, no, you're going to be working for me.
I feel like that was more of Wrecker being a little naive, but I feel like the Hunter knows this is Hunter knows they're not in a great situation right now.
Right.
But I feel like Hunter is like, we'll do anything to make sure Omega's safe. And that's kind of where we left them with Rex last week. Rex says, you can't like just lay low with them wanting Omega like this. So I don't know about naive personally, but I feel like Wrecker definitely doesn't always have the strongest concept of what's going on.
Yeah.
But that's why we love him.
I know, and I feel like this season Wrecker's been the most intelligent he's been.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a lot of acting with your like feelings rather than acting with your brain. And Wrecker this season has done a lot of acting with his brain, which is incredibly unlike what we've seen before.
And it shows his growth.
I think that this season with everyone has done a great job of showing the growth, which I really like. So anyway, with that, we then get to the actual getting to the planet and working with Fennec. This is where we get our first discussion of Hunter and Wrecker saying, like, we shouldn't trust Fennec. And Fennec is obviously overhearing this and bursts through the door and says, if you honor your end of the deal, I'll honor mine. Do you, in this point, we obviously know what happens, but do you feel like they were right to just trust her at this point?
That's tough because we know at the end of the day, Fennec is motivated by money. Mm-hmm. She always has been. So I'm torn because part of me thinks, well, if she wasn't going to do anything to them because she needed the money.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've seen in The Mandalorian and just all the other bounty hunter experiences we've gotten, they do seem to have some sort of code of honor or something,
mm-hmm.
where there really is no backstabbing, at least among the people they work with. Mm-hmm. Yes, they'll backstab other bounty hunters, but if they ask for help, they're not going to hang you out to dry.
And it seems like she legitimately needs them. Like, she has implied that she's gone after this guy before. She literally has been to this planet before, because she says as they land, they get in, she talks to this pit droid and says, I want one that won't sink like last time. And so she's clearly been trying at this.
And remember, she also says a bunch of other people have gone after him, and none of them have come back. Mm-hmm. So she does need their help, and she really lucked out in recruiting the people she did.
Yeah, I know. They were kind of perfectly situated for this task, which, again, it's written to be that way. But I do want to talk about the target. We don't know this target, but this person is Siler Saris, and his species is Yamri, and they're not seen often throughout Star Wars, but the one place we have seen them is in the Cantina in Episode 4. Mm-hmm. The movie, not the Bad Batch episode. Yeah. We see a ginormous praying mantis looking character, and this is of the same species, so it's exciting to see that all, kind of come full circle. I love when they pull in alien species.
Yeah.
So I thought this was really exciting, and this guy, Siler Saris, they refer to him as the Slayer of Ordo Eris, and Ordo Eris is a base that we see in Jedi Fallen Order, one of my personal favorite video games. And they say he killed 2 top members of the Haxian Brood and stole credits. The Haxian Brood, I know Dan has played a little bit of Fallen Order. Did you get to the part where the bounty hunters attack you at all? So there are bounty hunters that have a bounty out on Cal, and it's the Haxian Brood. So there have been little connections to Jedi Fallen Order, Survivor, the Jedi games in the Bad Batch. Like, for example, they went to the planet that the first game starts on last season, Braca. Mm-hmm. I was very excited to see that. And anytime we get a Jedi game connection, I'm always very excited. So that was a nice little detail for me.
Yeah.
Haxian Brood. Anyway.
I can't. After the third game, depending on how that ends, I feel like Cal Kestis will make an appearance in the Star Wars cinematic or television universe. I don't know which one.
I always feel like when they make a character in animation or video games look like the character that they're playing, it at least sets it up to be a strong possibility, right?
Oh, yeah. Especially with how popular the games are.
And let's bring Iden Versio back, too. You agree?
Yeah.
I love Iden Versio. We're getting off topic here. But anyway, they get to this planet. They get their boat that won't sink, according to the pit droid. I love the little interaction where Fennec, talks him down on the price. I love Fennec as a character. It's awesome. But, she says, Hunter, you scout. Tell me where to go. Wrecker, watch for any danger. They're moving through the water, and they find these mines.
Right.
So Fennec says, I wouldn't go in that water. And then when they encounter the mines, Fennec says, you guys should get in that water.
Yeah.
So they get in, they see one, and then they see a whole bunch more. They start disabling them, and it takes a really long time, and Fennec's getting a little annoyed.
Yeah.
And, of course, because it's an episode of The Bad Batch, and because they set up how dangerous these waters are and how no one knows what creatures lurk in there.
No one except Fennec.
Except Fennec. We see these reptilian-like creatures jumping out of the water and trying to attack Hunter and Wrecker. We go through a classic, wonderful and fun Bad Batch style action scene where they disarm the bombs, they defeat all the reptile-ish things. I couldn't find a name for them. They didn't say anything, did they?
No.
Then we'll say reptile-like aliens. And they, get attacked, they fight them off. And as they're kind of moving in the water after this, they kind of start talking about Omega a little bit. Fennec's kind of teasing them a little bit. Like, she says that she let Omega go because the people putting the bounty out, the Kaminoans, wanted... they thought Omega would be safer with the Bad Batch. She says, clearly not.
I fully agree. I think that was... Especially because they kind of they directly said to her, well, you lost her. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I didn't lose her. I let her go. you guys are the ones who lost her. And then she drops the line about how the Kaminoans told her, hey, she'll be safer with them. So again, I also think that's goes back to, at the end of the day, Fennec is, by definition, a bounty hunter, does exactly what whoever's paying her tells her to do.
And they have this money discussion where Wrecker says, you bounty hunters do anything for credits or something, and Fennec says, at least I have credits. And I'm paraphrasing, but
yeah, it was...
It is basically saying, like, this is what you got to do to stay afloat.
Right, and and the Bad Batch should know that, because the entirety of Season 2 was... Not the entirety, most of Season 2 was doing odd jobs with Sid.
Oh, man. Can we talk about Sid for a second?
I hope she's no longer...
Oh, man.
We're going to see her again, but...
I hope they run her over with the Marauder. I know we talked the last, like, however many weeks about
maybe
redemption in Star Wars.
Maybe Crosshair will get her.
That'll be when he's fixed. It's the first thing he does. Bang, right in Sid. Anyway, not great. But Sid sucks. But this money talk brings us back to the concept of the Book of Boba Fett. And we ultimately find that Fennec can move past that. Fennec can do what's right and what's good and serve the people around her and not just be motivated by money. So I thought it was I love when they do this with, like, we know resolution later on in a character's life, and we can kind of see the cracks, or, whether cracks or, the good stuff starting to brew earlier in this timeline. Mm-hmm. I thought that was fun. So they ultimately reach this hideout, and we have this kind of nice action scene where Hunter and Wrecker initially see this treehouse. They go in, they fail miserably.
As they tend to.
They fall forward a lot, and this was not one of those examples.
Before we... Just a little aside here. You know who I was reminded of when I saw him climbing up the wall?
Who?
Randall Boggs.
Oh my god. Yep.
That's the first thing I thought of. Oh my god, it's Randall Boggs.
We scare because we care. It did kind of have a monster movie sort of feel to it, with like it being in the dark. I always think it's intriguing with, like, just how gorgeous the Bad Batch animation is. Like, and it truly was. And we'll talk about it kind of in the Crosshair Omega portion of it. I just think the animation is so good. And I think we take it a little for granted just because of, like, if you watch the early season of Clone Wars, this is, like...
Oh, yeah.
So good. But having it at night, I thought, they obviously want to have a reason to make it at night. Hard to see. And I think it did kind of work with that Randall Boggs-esque nature. But, Hunter and Wrecker found the treehouse. Fennec disables escape so he can escape. She shoots at him, but does it, like, bounce off of him or something? Like, because Fennec wouldn't miss, but, like, she just shot straight at him.
Yeah. I don't
quite know what happened there. But...
Especially because she needed him alive, so I don't...
Well, they were stunning. It was the circle.
Well, he also took a bunch
well,
of
it
stuns.
looks like he can't... Yeah, strong
he
guy.
ate them.
See, like...
We know how powerful they are. They'll put down any human with one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, like, so Fennec, like, he gets Fennec off his back. Wrecker starts wrestling him. Then he spits something on his helmet. And then Hunter and Fennec kind of come in and finish the job. And then they take him down. So we now get to this point where we have Hunter, Wrecker, and Fennec kind of parting ways back in that space station. And Hunter asks Fennec to honor her deal. She says to trust her and that she'll get the information they need, which is not what she promised. Which is kind of, honestly, to be expected with a bounty hunter.
Yeah, what
you'd think. Like, I do believe that we'll talk about this at the end, but I believe she's going to get them the information they want.
I agree, I think.
But of course, it's like just not what she described. And she said basically, you can trust me or you can fight me, and they settle on trusting. But I really feel like she would have probably lost that fight. And I don't know what would have happened.
I don't know.
I think she knows that they'll be lost. They won't have the information without her. So I think it was like...
And I think she has more tricks up her sleeve, as they all tend to.
Agreed.
And everybody knows what the Bad Batch is. I mean, you don't see a 6'7" clone who's 400 pounds and who you literally watched beat a reptile alien with his bare hands. I don't think you underestimate that person. I think if she's saying that, she has some sort of...
And she doesn't have to beat them. Like,
she
physically
just has to get away.
Yeah, so, but that aside, I think...
As we digress.
I think they made the right decision, I would say. And as we see Fennec leaving, she gets in her ship, and we see the holo projector activate, and she says to this mystery person, "I've just finished a job with some clones that are interested in the Empire's M-count bounties." And we have, of course, in classic Star Wars fashion, this figure is off screen, their voice is muffled. This person says something, and Fennec says she's sure the clones can be easily tracked, and she'll send the information that she has. I have thoughts on who I believe this is. Do you have thoughts on who you believe this is?
Do we think it's the same person?
I don't know. Asajj Ventress?
Oh, I was going to say Cad Bane.
So, these are great. This is great. We're going to have an actual discussion. Go ahead. Why do you think Cad Bane?
Those clones have personally wronged him, in his mind,
Mm-hmm.
as we saw in Bad Batch Season 2.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't seem like the one who forgets.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cad Bane is going to want to kill them.
I agree.
But my question
and I also think he's that...
Is he going to give them information on M-count?
I don't... Let's go to Ventress for a second.
Okay, so let's talk about Ventress.
I have a thought.
So we know we see Asajj Ventress in the trailer.
With yellow lightsabers and
so cool.
Some hair.
Are you familiar with the story from Dark Disciples?
Her and Quinlan Vos have a romantic involvement, and she sacrifices himself for him. Dooku,
yes, more
or less.
Well, Dan's favorite character, Count Dooku, is heavily involved. But Asajj is trying to kill Count Dooku, or Quinlan's trying, assigned by the Jedi Council to kill Count Dooku. Basically goes to Asajj for help. Asajj says, "You're going to need to tap into the dark side for this." And she kind of helps him, and he ends up ultimately falling to the dark side, and they have to work to bring him back, and it ultimately ends with Asajj ending up being a good guy, and as you said, sacrificing herself for Quinlan, who, ultimately comes back to the light, and he buries her on Dathomir, which is her place of origin, and a place where reanimation and stuff happens a lot. So he puts her in this burial pond, and not in one of the pods that you see, and something bubbles or glows or something, so indicating there may be something more there. And I want to point out a connection to Obi-Wan, the show, the Kenobi show.
Yeah,
when Obi-Wan's on that one planet where he first fights Darth Vader, he's in this path hideout from the hidden path, and on the wall it says Quinlan Vos, and he's like, Quinlan was here. So my speculation here is that Ventress, however she was able to return, I do not know, and I'm looking forward to seeing. But I think that Asajj could be taking these bounties, rescuing the people with M counts.
That was going to be my question.
Putting them through the path, and it's possible that we could see Quinlan too.
Yes,
because he's technically alive at this time.
I was going to say, as somebody like Asajj, who has a high M count, who was recruited to be a Jedi, and then to be a Sith after the falling out.
Sith assassin,
excuse me.
It's like Nordstrom Rack.
Do we think, and as somebody who was sought after and faced the violence almost that comes with a high M count, that was going to be my question. Will she actually... What will she do? Will she try and help the Empire or help...
Based on where she's left in Dark Disciple, I think that she will be on the side of helping the good, helping people who would be persecuted by the Empire.
And I think we even saw that at the end of the Clone Wars when Ahsoka was on trial. Remember when Anakin went to fight her? She got really angry at him. Mm-hmm. This was after she left Dooku and was just acting as her own assassin.
She was working as a bounty hunter.
Assassin bounty hunter.
There's some connection there with she kind of knows this world and how to operate within it.
Yeah, and she made it a point to say this is your fault. You failed her. This is because of you. And I think that shows that she does have some sort of moral compass that is different than the typical bounty hunter. I think her and Fennec's moral compasses are different. And
I think that goes to the fact that Asajj is not technically she's a bounty hunter, obviously, right. But she's not a bounty. She's not if you were to group her in one of the Star Wars archetypes, she's not. Yeah, she's not a bounty hunter per se. And I think that goes to show it. And I think if Asajj and Fennec are somehow friends, there's got to be a reason Fennec isn't taking M count bounties. And could it be something like that, or whoever she's talking?
Could it be as simple as she's not one of these top tier bounty hunters yet?
It could be, but also she's. I could see them making it where she's like actively not taking these for a reason.
Yeah.
And that this could be, we're just speculating. It could be Ventress. I think it would be an appropriate place to have Ventress.
I agree.
But do you have any other thoughts on who else it could be?
Could be one of the Hutts, maybe.
I've heard some speculation that could be Boba Fett.
Could be.
It seems like Fennec and Boba are just meeting, or at least interacting for the first time on Tatooine.
Right. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
It could be a total surprise or total new character. I don't want to say it's Ventress, but I feel like, and if they didn't show Ventress in the trailer, I would not say Ventress. What'd you say?
Palpatine.
Somehow Palpatine has started collecting bounties. He'd probably be a good bounty hunter. Just shock him.
They'd all come in cold.
They would all come in cold. He's kind of crazy. But yeah, if do you have any other thoughts before we scooch on to...
No, it's one of those things where it could be one of so many people.
Mm-hmm. But given what we know...
I think you convinced me. I think it would be Asajj over Cad Bane.
And the only reason that I lean away from Cad Bane is because I believe that this is Fennec trying to help them. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's Fennec trying to get them... basically ultimately get Omega captured.
Right.
So I think it could be Ventress or someone who's trying to help them in that way. Could be Quinlan. I don't know. Anyway, so let's switch over, and this was intercut between all this different stuff we were talking about, but sifting it out so we can, just kind of talk about it linear, or, like each storyline linearly. Talk about Omega and Crosshair and what they've been up to. So...
Our three amigos, Crosshair, Badger, and Omega.
It really is fantastic. We left off with Hunter telling Omega to have Crosshair get his hand looked at, and we first cut back to them with Crosshair on Pabu getting his hand kind of scanned by AZ-1. Mm-hmm. And he says he can't treat this, and he suggests that it's something going on in his head rather than something that he could physically treat.
Right.
He asked Crosshair to elaborate on what he underwent on Tantus, whatever torture or treatment or procedures he went through, and Crosshair is not having it. He gets up and storms out. And this is, for me, they're continuously bringing up this notion that Crosshair knows more than he's saying. Do you believe that there's what is Crosshair keeping from them? And do you think whatever that is causing his hand tremor?
Yes. Short answer, yes. What he's keeping, I don't know. Is he keeping the torture because he doesn't want the Bad Batch to act irrationally? If he says some very horrible things, will the Bad Batch then go to Tantus and try and be rash about this? Which
possibly,
I think they would.
They care.
They care to a fault, and that's where Crosshair kind of sticks out different among them. Where he's I'd say he's more aligned with Rex in this scenario of they are stronger than you expect. If you're going to beat them, you need a plan. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to tell you why you need that plan yet. I'll tell you in due time when you need to know. Because I do think that if they were to tell them what's happening, they would be rash, and it would ultimately hurt them.
Mm-hmm. And it could be the thing where it's it's painful for him to relive, and this perfect storm of why he doesn't want to bring it up. But so that leads him to storm out, and he is now, next time we cut back to him, doing target practice, trying to shoot these fruits. Mm-hmm. And he's coming close. I think it's a little closer than it might have been earlier, and that could just be wishful thinking. Mm-hmm. But he's still missing, and Omega's trying to encourage him and say, you're still really close, and he says it's not good enough for a sniper. And she really tries to convince him of what AZ-1 was saying. Maybe this is something you can work through in your mind and not something that you can treat. And I think this is really where you can start to see a little bit of the payoff for the work that they've done this season with building up the relationship between Omega and Crosshair. Yeah. Because he begrudgingly agrees to whatever she has planned.
Well, because like you said, he begrudgingly agrees, and he goes, am I going to like this? And she's like, you don't like anything. He's like, yeah, I guess you're right.
Their interactions are so endearing. Yes. I love it.
I would not have pegged that to be the best relationship on the show.
No, it's so good. And, like, it just warms your heart. And as you've said previously, they do stuff like this when they're going to rip our hearts out later. So let's not touch on that because I don't want to be sad right now.
And also, I just want to point out, going back to our discussion last week or 2 weeks ago, Crosshair has still not painted his armor yet.
Yeah, and do you think that might happen whenever he works through whatever issues he has?
Potentially.
That would be kind of nice. I feel like they all could use a nice little coat of paint. They're looking, and I think it parallels their, like, the state of the galaxy and their, you know, what they're going through right now. But I think could all use a fresh coat of paint before the finale.
Right, and I think Crosshair's still in his Clone Force 99 armor because he hasn't had these experiences yet, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes of, you know, what they've been through where he hasn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's move on to that. So the last time we got back to them for the episode, and I do want to say we didn't get much Batcher content this week, but Batcher's been around the whole time. They're petting her. I just gotta love Batcher. But then we got back to this beautiful, like, seascape with, like, the mountains behind him and the winds gently blowing in the hair. Also, before this is, like, it's on topic, but it's not directly what we're talking about. Omega's outfit change mid-episode. We talked about last week how they don't really change their outfits too often, especially when it's just, like, they're just wearing it around outfit. I think it's highlighting, like, Omega's growth and, like, the individuality and all of that, but I love that Poe Dameron style leather jacket that she had.
Yes. It's Omega out of the entire Bad Batch has the most individuality. She changed her hair, like, so I think we're seeing Omega grow, and I think the Bad Batch is going to end with Omega going out on her own, whether that's forced or not.
Oh, Dan.
Sorry,
okay.
That's a little dark. But
let's lift it up a little and say I think it's interesting because she had really all her life she's been in the Camino, like, uniform. She wore that for the first 2 seasons primarily, right?
Yeah.
Or the first season.
Right.
And the second season, she kind of had this more military-looking kind of uniform.
And her hat.
And her hat. I'm kind of happy the hat went away.
I like the hat.
I think she needs a Bad Batch uniform. And I think this might tie all into them all getting kind of...
Should wear her crosshairs? Armor?
I don't know why I don't want to know why she might have crosshairs armor.
We know she won't have tax.
Dan, we're done with this. Anyway, I think allowing her to express her individuality that way, I think, is great. So anyway, they're on this beautiful seascape. They are Batcher's always near the two of them, and it's so cute. And we have Omega and Crosshair sitting cross-legged, and Crosshair's like, "Where did you learn how to do this?" And she said, "I learned this from one of my favorite Star Wars characters, her friend, the Jedi Wookiee Gungi, on Kashyyyk." Mm-hmm. So can we talk about Gungi real quick?
Of course.
Oh my god, when I saw him, and it was in the trailer for season 2.
Thank God.
Lost my mind.
Thank God.
I know, because we first see him, you know, in the Gathering arc of the Clone Wars.
Right.
And being a youngling in the prequel era does not typically end well.
Especially as you know what happens, and you're like, oh, this is...
And I remember when I first watched it, it didn't immediately click, but I saw something on Twitter forever ago, the first time I watched Clone Wars, and I was like, oh man, don't want to know what happened to them.
Yeah.
And I still don't know what happened to the rest of them. He was easily my favorite of the bunch, but I hope they all didn't die. And he didn't really mention them in that last season, but I think he said he lost people.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was just so excited to see him last time, and hear him mentioned is exciting. But she ultimately said she learned it from how to meditate from him on Kashyyyk. And I liked the drawing between it being like a Jedi and a Wookiee thing, and Omega's not a Jedi or a Wookiee, but she's using the lessons from that.
Right. And
she believes this could help Crosshair. And Crosshair says to her, again, and this is where we'll really talk about this, when did you go to Kashyyyk?
Yeah. It's
like Crosshair basically needs like a Star Wars Explained video on the Bad Batch because he's been so far removed. And I think it's really highlighting that he's starting to, I think, realize just how much he missed and how much he really cares about the fact that he missed those things.
Yes. Sorry, I just had a little side thing going on in my head. Do we think he cares that he's missing them because he's missing things with Omega, or just as the group?
I think it's kind of the group because like who's Fee? That didn't really much to do. Who's Fennec? Like I think he's just genuinely like, holy cow, I missed all of this. And one thing I don't think they've touched on enough is like Tech is the one who wanted to go rescue Crosshair in the last time we saw Tech.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I'll phrase that. I want that to be discussed, and I think they're saving that for some reason.
Yes.
You know the reason I think they're saving it for. But I think that, like, just highlighting everything he's missed, I think it's going to continue to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it might help to, like, humanize him a little. So we ultimately end, though... Do you have anything else to add on that? I'm sorry.
About?
Crosshair missing things?
Just, I think that's going to be a recurring theme going forward. It'll be, what was that? Who was that?
What were you guys doing?
Yeah. Do we think the Bad Batch knows about Asajj Ventress? Just knows about the character?
It's possible.
I think they know who she is. They've
well,
at least
they were operating during
the Clone Wars,
yeah.
And I think I would be scared of this mythical creature almost with 2 lightsabers who is incredibly quick.
So you think when they see Ventress, they're going to be like, ah!
Like, oh crap, who are you?
Yeah, for whatever reason that Ventress comes into the picture, we know she is, whether it's the mystery voice or not. I do think they probably will know what's going on.
I think they'll know who she is. 100%. And I think they will have that, like, oh God. Not this one. Like, I didn't think you were still here. I thought you were probably dead.
And you can hear the Clone Wars witty dialogue saying "I was" or something like that.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, Omega. So we're with them. Omega tells Crosshair to like close his eyes and focus, and that's where we end. So what I think might come of that is we see Crosshair in this situation where I think Crosshair legitimately believes that it's a physical ailment and that he really isn't going to be able to gain much from this. But when he actually is thinking about it with Omega, I think he is starting to realize that he might have some sort of mental problem and he does need to work through some stuff. Now, where the solution to that problem comes in and how the meditation can fix it, I'm not 100% sure. But I do think that as he starts to work through this and as he starts to really think about it, whatever lessons Omega's trying to teach him are going to end up assisting him and helping him. Dan, do you have any thoughts on the meditation process, what it might do to Crosshair, and how it could like help him get better?
I think we're going to see Crosshair doing it on his own. I think next time they're on the Marauder, all going to a mission, I think we're going to see Crosshair sitting by himself meditating.
That would be so nice. Dude, you don't think we're going to immediately like see the fruits of this?
No.
You think it's just going to be like gradual?
Yes. Because I think we're going to have to see Crosshair actually accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think that could come with increased meditation time and him sharing what happened.
Because I think everything with Crosshair is you can lead him to water, but you can't teach him how to drink.
Mm-hmm. And I think Omega is the one that's making him want to drink,
right?
Metaphorically,
yes.
Not anyway,
bet he would enjoy the bar too.
Probably.
You guys could drink at Galaxy's Edge.
I'd hang out with Crosshair. Would love to hang out with Tech though. Anyway, Tech is my favorite member of the Bad Batch. Omega slid in his absence. But that brings us to the conclusion of this episode. And as we do, I wanted to talk about some big ideas. There are only 2 that I really wanted to discuss. The first, we talk about every week. We don't have to spend much time on it. But the idea of family and looking out for the people that you care about, the people that are your family.
Mm-hmm.
It's ever present in the show, ever present anytime the clones are around.
Yes.
Do you have anything new to add for this episode?
Trust.
Well, that's my next big idea.
Well, sorry to steal your thunder.
That's okay. We can just go straight to that.
Trust. This whole season, we've been seeing that we have to trust each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have to trust each within our own group. It's trusting Crosshair. And we see each person kind of go through that process differently. Like, Echo, for example, is kind of like, okay, you're back. Let's go.
Yeah.
Where Wrecker was pretty quick. Omega obviously has a great deal of trust in Crosshair. And Hunter took a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of segued into this week of trusting the people, having some level of trust with the people around you,
mm-hmm.
especially with Fennec.
And I think it's highlighting like the different types of trust. So like Hunter trusting Crosshair trusting them to welcome him back is a little different than them trusting Fennec. But I think it's highlighting the importance of trust. And like in Star Wars and in real life, you can't do everything alone. And It's important to rely on people. So this is highlighting that you need to trust them, trust people of any different variety. And that's not to bring up the word you mentioned earlier again, naive. I think naivety is a time to, like, it could break trust, but I think everyone in these situations knows the kind of trust that they need to have.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I think one of the big lessons here is trust. So,
I agree.
Anything else on big ideas before we move on?
No, other than, trust. That's
trust. I think that was the key of this episode.
Yeah.
And Omega and Crosshair, like kind of bringing it home with the way the episode concluded.
Right.
Omega and Crosshair, or Crosshair trusting Omega, I think will pay off for him.
I agree.
A lot. So yeah, as we do, let's kind of look forward. I want to talk about this episode as Bad Batch does this frequently, where we're setting up the future in this episode. The actual plot of the season is pushing forward slower this episode than it has the past few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, for me personally, I think that was kind of necessary. I feel like we've been running, and having this time to take a breather, do something a little more classically Bad Batchy, like fighting off swamp monsters.
Yes.
Gave us some breathing room to have Crosshair and Omega build their relationship a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Put the pieces in place to do something bigger maybe next week.
Right.
And we talked about last week, I believe, the term filler. I do not believe that there is such thing as filler in Star Wars. Everything is very deliberate in Star Wars.
Yes.
And I think one who believes that there's filler in Star Wars would call this a filler episode.
Yes.
But I think there's a lot of juicy details in here that, while you could probably do without it, I think it greatly enhances the overall story they're trying to tell.
Just on that, I think there are 3 or 4 key scenes of this episode. And if somebody were to argue it as filler, you could cut out 90% of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's a fun episode. Star Wars is fun.
Enjoy what's being given to you.
It is supposed to be fun to watch. It is supposed to be, fighting the monsters, having your band of people, your group doing it, having the witty remarks, having this camaraderie. And I think that's, we see that throughout all the Star Wars. That's what it always comes back to.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think one of my issues with, and Bad Batch is one of the only examples in modern Star Wars TV that I think is evading this, but I think it's with this Disney Plus format with like the live action shows, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
I think they almost don't give enough breathing room. This 8-episode format is a lot. Like I think
they don't have time.
They're not allowed to have time.
Yeah.
I think like having something like this, it's enhancing the story. If we wanted to be as efficient as possible, you could have just tacked these Crosshair and Omega scenes into the last episode or into whatever the next episode is and make it really fast. But I think really giving everything time to sit with people and think about it. And it's another reason I love the weekly model is it gives you time to really sit and think about it. And I think this was just a good example of the Bad Batch using their episode count not to just tell this giant story, which they are this season. They're really, I think, telling a very big story. Mm-hmm. But I'm happy they're still taking time to slow it down, do something like this, where it's pushing the story forward a little, but giving us time to build the relationships between the characters.
And kind of bridging that into the next episode. I think next episode is really going to start to ramp up the action again.
Yes, that's
I think it was coming down. We're at a nice little, I don't want to say a feel-good spot, but it ended on a high note.
Yes.
Now I think we're going to start to see the action come in.
because this next episode is season 3, episode 9, called The Harbinger. We'll talk about that in a second. But season 3 has 15 episodes. So we have
we're
finished episode 8. We're going into episode 9. So we're really making our way through the show.
Yes, we have.
There's not all the time in the world left.
No.
I do. This is off topic, but I do want to talk about the next episode. But I've seen people say that last seasons of The Bad Batch had 16 episodes. They're currently telling us that this is 15 episodes ending on May 1st. I've seen speculation that there's going to be a 16th episode that they're going to surprise us with, like the real finale, on May 4th. What do you think about that? May 4th is a Saturday? I don't know if I believe that that's the thing that they would do.
I could honestly just see them drop. How many episodes are supposed to be released on the last day?
Just one.
I could just see them having them drop a second one.
It could also be a thing where this is like an hour-long episode or something.
Yeah.
So that's speculation aside. I've seen people, from when they revealed the episode list earlier this like fall or something, I've seen people say that. But anyway, this episode is called The Harbinger. I've seen Star Wars Explained. I watched their review of this episode. They mentioned the Harbinger could be like Asajj's like nickname. Mm-hmm. The Asajj Ventures thought, I will say, is not necessarily... It was my first instinct, but it is something that people are... I think it's kind of like what the consensus on the
yes.
internet is of what might happen. And the Harbinger could be like a nickname, like Ventures is a nickname or something.
Yeah.
Other than that, I have absolutely no clue. I wrote down the definition of a Harbinger. It is a person or thing that announces or signals the approach of another. I don't really know.
Yeah. Well... I mean, we could be the Bad Batch writers could just be like, we're going to take a week off, and this could be an Empire episode.
Could be. And
that could be the Harbinger.
Yeah?
Talking about Palpatine clones or something like that.
Yeah.
So, I try not to speculate too much when it comes to stuff like this, because we don't know.
No, and especially like this, like... We have no clue.
And I think we're due for an Empire episode.
We agree.
We haven't seen any of them in weeks.
It's harder now because we could always cut back to like our Crosshair episode where it's just him, but he was kind of like our eyes into the Empire.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it'll take someone like getting kidnapped or something.
Will be a Wolf episode because
be a Wolf.
We still need to see what happens because Wolf is going to face some sort of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is. And we know from Rebels that Wolf makes it out of the Empire in some way or another, along with Gregor.
Yeah.
So it could be a Wolf. We're gonna have to see. They're not gonna just leave that storyline open.
Oh no, it's just a matter of when we pick it up.
Right.
All right. So yeah, that's our thoughts on season 3, episode 8, Bad Territory.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, let's move on to what I've been calling Dan's mystery segment.
Yes. So, as I was figuring out, when we were planning this, as you guys know, we tried to do a fun segment at the end of the episode. So I told Joey that I'm going to just do it. You're not going to know what it is. You're not going to have any input, but it does involve you. So I hope you're ready for it.
I'm so ready. Looking forward to it.
So part of Star Wars is the dialogue. And it really did drop us some memorable quotes.
Oh, no.
So we're going to play a game of Who Said It.
Oh, God. And I don't know if you recall this, but I've once told you, my worst part of Star Wars trivia is the dialogue. Do you remember that?
I did not. Then I apologize.
Oh, no, I didn't know if this is malicious.
So I'm going to give you the basic setup. Okay. I'm going to tell you a quote.
Okay.
And then if you need a hint, I can tell you if it's a show or a movie.
Okay.
If you need another hint, I will tell you the show or the movie.
Okay.
And if it is a show, if you need another hint, I will give you the episode.
Okay.
So, for example, if I were to say, it's a trap, and let's say you didn't know, I would say, you ask for a hint, I'd say, it's a movie, you need another hint, Return of the Jedi, and then it would be none other than...
Admiral Akbar.
Great. So this is how we're going to start.
Yep.
So I really tried to pick, I will say, I tried to pick quotes that I think you would recognize. I'm not out to get you. So... I'll start with an easy one.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
So the first quote is, "Kid, I'm about to let everyone in on the secret."
This would be Kanan.
It was Kanan from none of the Star Wars Rebels.
Great episode.
Season 1, Spark of the Rebellion.
Classic
And
Kanan.
that was a great episode. And we want to talk about what it was. It's
I mean, we can. So
just a little. So the Spark of the Rebellion was it episode 1 of Rebels or episode 2?
It was in the early on. I don't think it was the first few episodes because Kanan was hiding, being a Jedi for a long time. But when they're rescuing the Wookiees.
Yep.
Because they were being like kidnapped.
And then Callus was there chasing them, and they were cornered. And Ezra says, "Well, what are we gonna do?" Like, did Ezra know at that point?
Ezra knew.
Ezra knew because he found the lightsaber.
But no one knew.
No one else knew but Ezra.
Like, I think he had already agreed to take Ezra on as his Padawan. But you see them kind of cornered, and Kanan, says the quote that Dan pointed out, and he stands up and turns his lightsaber on,
clicks it.
And everyone, all the Empire has no clue what's going on. It's it's a chills Star Wars moment.
I know.
Love it. Kanan's one of my favorite characters.
I was really excited.
Oh my god, that was one of the points where I was like, oh, this is going to be good. This show is going to be fantastic, and I couldn't even have anticipated how good the show got after that. Yeah. So anyway, let's fire on to the next one. I'm excited.
The next one. I wish I could put my fist through this whole lousy, beautiful town.
That would be Rose Tico in Last Jedi.
Wow, 2 for 2. I tried to pick stuff I'm not going to throw you an Andor quote.
I say that one's sad. It's probably from Andor.
What?
If you did, I'd say that one sounds sad. It's probably from Andor. Anyway, Rose Tico, underappreciated Star Wars character.
I agree.
Should have been in I love The Rise of Skywalker. I've talked about The Rise of Skywalker. It's my favorite Star Wars movie. The worst part about The Rise of Skywalker is that Rose Tico is barely in it.
I agree.
And I think that may lose us some good faith from some people, but, I think she's a wonderful character.
Regardless of your feelings on the sequels, whether you like it or dislike it, when you introduce characters, it's always good to see a resolution. Mm-hmm. In writing out somebody who had such a big role in The Last Jedi. To just not be there. And they really did it.
And they shot, I know there are scenes, and there aren't any deleted scenes.
People didn't like her.
I know. And there's a scene that exists of Rey and Rose talking, just the two of them.
Yeah.
Would have been a great scene.
Would have been a great scene.
Where are the deleted scenes, Dan?
That's a great question. Probably in the bowels of Disney somewhere.
I would love for them to just throw them in Disney Plus. I bought the Blu-ray for The Rise of Skywalker because I was like, I need to see what they didn't show us because there's so much happened in this movie.
Yeah.
There was none. Anyway, we can go on to the next one.
Okay. Quote number 3.
All right.
Go back to your republic and tell them what happened. This one might be a little stumper.
Go back to your republic. Give me the first clue.
It is from a show.
Okay.
Do you want?
Give me the next clue.
It is from the Clone Wars.
Give me my last clue before I guess. I have a guess.
The episode title is called The Lawless.
Oh, man. This one is a tricky one. So I'm assuming this is going to be a quote from a villain. I'm going to go with Count Dooku because of your affinity to Count Dooku.
And I'd hate to tell you, you're incorrect.
Darn it. Can I give you a second guess?
Yeah.
Is it Cad Bane?
No.
Okay, go ahead, tell me.
It is none other than Bo-Katan Kryze. I intentionally picked a quote when she was in Death Watch.
Dan and I have this deep-seated argument from the season 3 of The Mandalorian where Dan was absolutely convinced that Bo-Katan is the villain.
The first line we got from Bo-Katan was, "I'm going to end this once and for all." If that doesn't show that she was ready to kill Grogu and the Mandalorian, I don't know what does. However,
all I gotta say is one of us is right, one of us wasn't.
Well, that tends to happen. You can either be right or wrong about
just
something.
Just like I'll be about #TechWatch.
Yes.
I can't say with confidence that that's correct.
Yeah.
I was more confident about Bo-Katan. Anyway, that's a great quote. I am so mad I missed it. I love the character.
Yeah.
Again, as we frequently call out my different things in the room.
I am, just the way the room is set up, I am looking at Joey's Bo-Katan helmet from Hasbro.
Yeah, the box series.
Yeah, really cool.
It's awesome. They have a Rex. That's I think that's going to be my next helmet. It's not technically out yet, but it's like the Phase 2 Rex.
With like the
yeah. It looks awesome. Anyway, fire away.
Okay, ready for quote number 4.
Yes, sir.
They are devious and deceitful and most importantly stupid.
Give me the first clue.
It is from a show again.
Okay. Devious, deceitful. Give me the next one.
It is also from the Clone Wars.
It sounds like something Obi-Wan would say.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
You were so close. Obi-Wan is in this episode.
Okay.
I mean,
as he is in most Clone Wars episodes.
He was heavily featured in this episode. However, I'm going to work backwards here.
Okay.
So this episode is when Anakin and Obi-Wan have to go liberate none other than Count Dooku from the pirates.
This is Count Dooku quote.
This was a Count Dooku quote.
I knew he was going to pull a Count Dooku quote.
You were right. And
I just chose the wrong one.
Yeah, so this is when Dooku was captured by the pirates, like Hondo, and Anakin and Obi-Wan
a truly
had to.
Great episode.
There were so many quotes I could have.
You threw me. You knew what you were doing when you were organizing these, didn't you?
I really did.
This is devious.
It was devious, but I really enjoyed that episode. It's such a good episode.
Oh, it really is, and it's so unique. Like I love things that pit characters that should be apart together.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about I'm a big X-Men fan, so anytime like Magneto has to make like an uneasy alliance with the X-Men,
mm-hmm.
I love that. So this was very similar to that sort of concept.
Yes.
It's very exciting. Mad I got that one wrong.
That's okay. I didn't do you any favors.
That was devious.
Well,
he set that up to get you.
Well,
in the quote selection, in the quote ordering, however.
Oh yeah, the quote ordering is totally intentional. So we'll get back on track here. I'll throw you a softball.
Okay. How many more do we have? How many do we have?
We have 2.
Okay, cool.
2 more. So the first one. So quote number 5. I've seen your daily routine. You are not busy.
Rey.
That is
Speaking to Luke. Thank you very much.
That is Rey.
You can tell the speed with which I get my. I haven't watched the Clone Wars fully in a while, I have to say.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if that would help. There's so much of it. But
I agree, but I didn't want to.
No, it's good. I'm happy you're including them because I should know them.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that I love. The Last Jedi is a very divisive movie. We can't pretend like it's not. There are parts of it that even aren't my favorite thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like the decisions I would have necessarily wanted to be made. But everything with Luke and Rey, everything with Rey in that movie, from her interactions with Luke to her interactions with Kylo, were just so good.
Yes. And
I understand that people get frustrated with the way that Luke acted in that movie. I think it makes sense given what they set up.
Mm-hmm.
But she was just in such disbelief.
Yeah.
Much like the audience was as
and
to what was happening.
That's kind of the point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the audience has seen Luke as, in the original trilogy, as the guy, the chosen one,
if you will.
Yes.
Obi-Wan thinks so.
Obi-Wan thinks so. George Lucas didn't necessarily think so.
Well, the chosen one wasn't a thing when those movies came out.
Well, I mean, Leia was the chosen one.
I'm not a huge fan of, in any story, the chosen one prophecy, but anyway, we can sort of shrug that aside. But no, I think that the interactions with Rey and Grumpy Luke is kind of fun too. Yeah. As much as you might not want to admit it.
Mm-hmm.
Like when the scene where he smacks her with the leaf.
Yes.
So good. Anyway, I could talk about this. Well, this will be a 2-hour episode if you get me talking about Rey.
So our final quote. This could be one of 2 people. Bonus points if you could say both people.
Okay.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Okay. So we've got Jyn Erso.
Right. She's not the one I had in mind.
I'm gonna say Leia is the other one. No? Okay. I realize I answered, but we're gonna erase Leia, and I'm gonna ask you for the hint on the other one.
The movie's Rogue One, as you've determined.
So they're both from Rogue One?
They're both from Rogue One.
Mon Mothma?
No.
Okay, tell me.
Cassian Andor.
Andor said that.
Said it in the beginning when they're on Jedha.
Huh. Not a very hopeful character. Dan knows that would be a challenge for me because, first of all, I'm happy I got that one.
Yes, and again, you got Jyn Erso. That is the...
That's you guys can hear that ringing in my mind.
That is her speech, which... Fantastic movie. I love Rogue One. However, she got that from Cassian early in the movie.
Interesting. So Rogue One, I think we may have talked about this before, but Rogue One is not personally my favorite Star Wars movie. I'm far more into the Jedi and the Force and basically the weirdness of Ahsoka, the series.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an adjustment for me to then go and watch the spy movie Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we talked about doing like a rewatch of the sequels for me to tell you about why I love them so much. I think we should probably do the same thing for Rogue One and the Andor. And you can make me love them.
Yes.
So yeah, anything else you got for me, Dan?
I got one more.
Is this a bonus or is this...
It's just a bonus.
Okay, cool.
Mind tricks don't work on me.
Watto?
It is
Episode
Watto.
1, The Phantom Menace?
There you go. End on a high note.
We're going to have to do a whole episode on Watto. Sets the whole events of the galaxy in motion.
Yeah.
By letting Qui-Gon cheat at dice. Yeah. Anyway, Dan, that was wonderful. That was very fun.
Yeah, that was... I tried to pick some people you would know, and I did try and throw you off. So I did...
No, that's fun. I like it.
I did fib in the beginning.
You're allowed to
saying
fib
that...
in this setting.
Not trying to... I'm not out to catch you. I absolutely was.
That's okay.
With the Bo-Katan Dooku.
I'm sure I will pay you back.
I know.
In spades and mystery segments that I'll do for you. I think we should definitely do more things like that, though.
Yes,
that was very fun. I hope it was enjoyable to listen to, too. And I was also very happy with... I'm a huge fan of all the animated shows, so I was happy at the representation they were receiving.
Yes, and I'm glad I could paint Bo-Katan in the light of a villain one last time.
Bo-Katan is not a villain.
I just... Okay.
I know. That's not what you said. But I do want to say, by the time that you're listening to this, we will have also released an episode on our thoughts for The Acolyte, and the recent trailer that just came out, and the series as a whole. We're very excited about it, and if you're interested, please give that a listen. You have anything else to add before we bring it home?
I do not. Follow us on wherever you're listening, and you can follow us on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Blue Shadow Pod, Instagram at Blue Shadow Podcast, and Facebook at Blue Shadow. Facebook is Blue Shadow.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And with that, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.